Welcome into Jets Nation Radio. I'm Angus Hout. Today we are joined by Connor Hrabchak. I am so bad at last names. So sorry, Connor. But Level Flight Podcast, how's it going?
It's going good. Jets finally played a game last night. There's a real game to talk about. The season has begun, and I could not be more excited. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. And I mean, the boys are playing their hearts out last night. Not the result we wanted to see. But before we get to the Jets, I got to talk about Betway because, well, they do sponsor this podcast. So if you're in Ontario and you're 19 plus, you want to make some bets on really anything hockey or sports related, get out there, go to Betway, and please play responsibly. So, yeah, Connor, last night, what are your thoughts on the Jets last night?
Yeah, I mean, they dropped 5-3, but for the majority of that game, they controlled the flow of play. I mean, they almost doubled Calgary's shots. Markstrom had an incredible game for Calgary. Mangiapane had the 2 goals, and it would have been a lot worse if they had lost 5-3 and gotten blown out in the shot department, but they controlled everything, expected goals, Corsi, all the fancy analytics. So I thought it was a really strong effort from the Jets, actually, and their forward group, the depth was on full effect.
Oh, absolutely. You love to see everything out of it. The only issue I kind of have is, again, me being nitpicky, but Nate Schmidt -2 on the night, and there's a couple of hiccups from him. Do you think he's going to be the long-term solution for the Winnipeg Jets this season?
Yeah, it's interesting conversation because is Nate Schmidt even in the lineup last night if Ville Heinola doesn't fracture his ankle, right? That's the question. Maybe they give Schmidt an extra 2 games off if Heinola is healthy, right? And they let him get back up to speed after missing the majority of training camp. But I think it'll be a conversation when Ville Heinola is healthy. That is he going to replace Nate Schmidt, especially if Nate Schmidt continues to struggle. Now, Nate Schmidt, like I said, missed the majority of training camp with an injury. He's rusty. He's getting up to speed. I think that he'll put that worst game behind him and he'll be just fine moving forward. But I still think it'll be a conversation in 8 to 12 weeks when Ville Heinola is presumably healthy.
Do you think one of the younger defensemen, not Sandberg, but Stanley or the other one, I'm blanking on him.
Chisholm.
Do you think either of them will have that opportunity, will step into the lineup if Nate Schmidt continues to have poor performances?
I think Declan Chisholm would be the safer bet to replace him just because of the play styles. They're very similar in the way they play. They're both puck movers. They're both good skaters. If Nate Schmidt continues to struggle over this homestand, and it's a big homestand coming up with Florida, LA, and Vegas, if he continues to struggle, why not give Declan Chisholm a shot, right? It's going to be interesting because Nate Schmidt's contract is near $6 million. And are you really going to sit a player who has a $6 million contract, right? So it's something to monitor, but I don't see Declan Chisholm making it into the lineup at least in the next week or two. But obviously anything could change. And if Schmidt continues to struggle, why not?
Why not? Yeah, I mean, get some of those young guys in, and yeah, it sucks that $6 million might have to set in the press box. But I mean, that one game that he sat in the press box last year, didn't he turn it around almost overnight after that? So maybe a night sitting might help Nate Schmidt. But like you said, he's got to kick some rust off the body because he did miss that time. Big news this week. I mean, I don't know what you were up to on Monday when you heard the news that both Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck were signed to identical deals. But what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, like most people, it was Canadian Thanksgiving, so I was at a dinner, and I was just fresh off the ice of my own hockey game, and this massive news drops, and I was flustered to say the least. But you don't see this. You don't see players sign the exact same contract in the exact same day for the exact same amount of years. It's rare, and it's one of the craziest moments in Jets 2.0 history. Signing their first ever draft pick. Both of them signed for their age 37 season. I believe these deals don't even kick in until next year. So it's a monumental moment for the franchise, and them coming in at the same dollar value, same term, is a little ironic. And they're both so important to this franchise, and you can't, it didn't make sense to do one without the other. Like if you signed Hellebuyck but traded Scheifele, then what really is the direction, and then vice versa as well. So I think it made a lot of sense. I think they could have picked a better time to do it because a lot of people were, having dinner, busy with family and whatnot. But yeah, it's huge for the franchise.
Massive. And yeah, I thought it was a joke at first. I saw it on NHL Breakers on Instagram. I'm like, why are they pulling a joke on us on a Monday?
Yeah.
But long term, what do you think this does for the team? Is this like a good long term move, or is this like, for the next 2 to 3, this is going to be great, but years 4 through 7, this is going to suck a lot?
Yeah, I think in the short term, for the next 2, 3, 4 years, like you said, I think this is a great move. I mean, you lowered their cap hit a little bit, especially Hellebuyck. Getting him for under 9 million is, in my opinion, a steal of a contract. Those last few years might hurt. They really might. You might see a Blake Wheeler-esque decline from either of these players, and then a buyout. But these contracts are front loaded. I believe both players are only making 6 million in their final year. And with the cap expected to jump, I don't think it'll be much of an issue as much as Blake Wheeler was. And his contract, I mean, obviously he was the greatest Jet since they returned. But I think with the cap expected to jump, and it would have jumped, reminder, for Blake Wheeler's sake, if it weren't for COVID, obviously. But with it expected to jump, I think these contracts are going to age just fine. And in the short term, this is a great move. I mean, you lock down both these players, lower AAV, and you've got a new Stanley Cup contention window. 3-4 years. Here they go.
Well, 3 to 4 years, you're thinking we might have a shot at the cup?
I think that's the window. I think if they're gonna compete, maybe move prospects, move picks, go all in. I think the next 3 to 4 years is it. Obviously, you'd like to see it sooner rather than later because these players are already 30, right? And you don't want to be going all in Connor Hellebuyck's age 36 season. I'm not talking about the last couple of years of the deal, but these next 2 to 3 years. I mean, if Cole Perfetti pans out and all the 4 first round prospects that are waiting in the wings pan out and make it into the lineup, I don't know. This is it.
If it meant like a cup run, would you be willing to move on from one of those young 4 guys?
I think you have to. I mean, you don't have to, in the sense that if all the players are on the right trajectory, then you obviously wait it out, and the players, you'll benefit because they'll be great. They might end up being lifetime Jets. But if Mark Scheifele and Hellebuyck are entering their age 32 season and you still have all these prospects and they haven't developed yet, and the clock is ticking, I think it may come to that in the next 3 years. I could definitely see it.
I mean, I'm behind it. If it means we gotta lose my guy Rutger McGroarty for a Stanley Cup, I think it's worth it.
Yeah. Well, I guess anything's worth it for a Stanley Cup at that point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think this actually means for like the city of Winnipeg, seeing 2 superstars actually commit to being here? And does that get rid of that narrative that Winnipeg sucks?
Well, yeah, I mean, people are obviously still going to say that. It's wrong. Winnipeg does not suck. But yeah, it's huge for the city. Huge. The narrative that players don't want to play here. Every player walks at their very first opportunity. They're bucking that trend by making these 2 players what I think will be lifetime Jets, right? They'll be here till they're 37. And then at that point, maybe they'll play 1 year like Blake Wheeler somewhere else. But I think this is just huge for the city. Your first ever draft pick when the team comes back, he's going to be here for 7 more years after this one. I think fans should be happy. I know fans have kind of, grown worrisome with Mark Scheifele's defensive game, and rightfully so. But when you see something like this, first ever draft pick, he pans out, he becomes a top line center, and he's going to be here for 15 plus seasons. I think that's something that fans should be stoked about.
Oh, 100%. Like I'm the first guy to rail on Mark Scheifele for his poor defensive game, but sometimes we got to get a little harder on Kyle Connor too, because that guy, he lacks that defensive skill sometimes. Do you think both Connor and Mark are gonna retire as Jets, and we'll see 55-37 go up into the rafters on the same night now?
Oh, yeah, that would be quite the first full circle moment after signing their contracts on the same day. I think now that they've done this, I think they are lifetime Jets. I think this takes them to their age 37 season, like I've said. And at that point, they're either going to retire or maybe play 1 more year with the Jets. I think it'll be. I don't think they're going to let them go. And I do think 37 is a lock to go up in the rafters. I think Scheifele, I'm a little more hesitant on, but the fact that he was their first ever draft pick, I think makes him near a lock. I think Hellebuyck, there's a 100% chance. Obviously, if he plays the next 7 years, he's a Vezina Trophy winning goaltender, the best goaltender in franchise history, 1.0 or 2.0. I think he's the lock to go up. But Scheifele, I'm a little more hesitant, but I think he's there too.
Really, that's interesting that you say that, because I would be a little bit more hesitant on Helly rather than Mark
Really?
Scheifele.
Okay.
Yeah, especially if Mark does finish his career as a Winnipeg Jet. If he stays in Winnipeg for all but 1 year, his number has to go up into the rafters just
I
because
think
he
they'll
was
both
that
go
first
up.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah. For the record, I think they'll both go up because Scheifele's going to play 1,000 games as a Jet. He's going to score however many goals as a Jet. Yeah, I think he's a lock to go up, or near a lock. I just think Hellebuyck with the Vezina Trophy, that kind of seals it for me that no matter what, his numbers should go up there.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, if there's one guy that's going to drag the Jets to the playoffs and hopefully a cup, it's going to be Connor Hrabchak. How many games do you think Hellebuyck actually gets into this year?
Yeah, so I wrote, I think a week ago, that I like Laurent Brossoit to play more than 27 games this year, which means Hellebuyck, what would that be? I'm not good at quick math, but last year he played like 65, and that'll come down, I think. That would be closer in the mid 50s, I think, is the right spot for Hellebuyck. Last night he gives up 4 goals on 21 shots. You don't want to see that from a guy that you just signed for 7 years, but he'll bounce back. He's Connor Hellebuyck. But you pay up $1.75 million for Laurent Brossoit. That is more than teams are paying for backup goaltenders. Teams are paying league minimum and just picking up goalies off the street for their backups, right? Especially when you have an elite starter. And they made it a priority. Now, you have Hellebuyck for the next 7 years. So now is the time you need to start limiting his workload. You can't keep playing him 65 plus games, facing all these shots, or else, like I said, the last 3 years of that deal are just going to be kind of treading water. You might see a buyout. But if you can start limiting his games now and remain a competitive team, that's the way to go. And I think they start that this year with Laurent Brossoit.
Oh, I sure hope so. Because, 65 plus games, and the guy sees the most grade A shots against versus anyone else in the league. I think that Connor Hellebuyck with the Tampa Bay Lightning would have had way more success than Vasilevsky.
Vasilevsky's clutch, though.
He's so clutch.
He gets it done when you need him. And he's Mr. Game 7 if there was one for goaltenders, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't even think the Tampa Bay Lightning would have needed Game 7s with Connor Hellebuyck kicking around.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so like last night, Jets played phenomenal. We were like real happy about their play style. Obviously, score sucked. But do you think the Jets playing that style of game is sustainable over 82 games?
I do. Now, health permitting, I think it's sustainable. Now, Nikolaj Ehlers got like quote unquote hurt. We haven't heard yet. We don't know how hurt he is. He might have just been a stinger, but he, kind of ran into the boards, got shaken up a little bit at the end of the game. If any one of those forwards in the top 6 were to miss time, then it all of a sudden doesn't really become a sustainable way to play, because the way they played last night was coming in waves, using all 4 lines, forechecking. And if one of those top 6 lines, then it's a trickle down effect. The 4th line isn't as effective. The 3rd line isn't as effective. And then ultimately the top 6 isn't as effective, especially if they're missing one of its key parts, right? I do think it's sustainable, health permitting, because if any injuries were to happen, then they still have elite depth, but it would shore up pretty quickly. But for the time being, I mean, the bottom 6 is the best we've seen in years, and they brought it last night. And that'll be something to watch against these elite teams coming in this week, because they also have good bottom 6s. Not in Florida's case. Their defense and bottom 6 is kind of questionable. They got the star players, but how will this bottom 6 against the contenders in the West, how will they stack up? It'll be something to watch, but I do think it's sustainable.
Nice. I love to hear it. Of the 3 new guys from the LA Kings, who are you most excited to watch this season?
After last night's game, I kind of want to say Alex Iafallo, but I'm going to stick with Vilardi. He was kind of my breakout pick before the season started. I'm going to stick with that. That line absolutely crushed their minutes at 5-on-5 last night. And I think Gabriel Vilardi's in for a huge season. He broke out last year with the 23 goals. He was on pace for 30 if he played 82. He missed a few games last year, but I think on that top line with two very gifted offensive players in Cal Connor and Mark Scheifele, who both scored last night. I think Velarde's in for a huge season, and it's only a matter of time before they start to build chemistry and it starts to show up on the score sheet.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you look at that backhand pass that Velarde had in the preseason. I'm still not over that, and I know it didn't matter. But do you think, like, with all of that skill right up front, that we might see our first 100-point player in Winnipeg since 2.0?
Ooh, that's a good question. I do know Murat Atesh of The Athletic, after last night's game, wrote that he thinks Cal Connor is going to get 100, which, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be him, right? I don't think Scheifele is a really gifted goal scorer, and last year he scored 42. But getting the 60 assists on top of that would be, I think, a bit of a stretch from Mark Scheifele. But if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Cal Connor. He's going to have to score 45 plus goals and get 55 plus assists, obviously. But I think it's possible. I mean, that top line looked so good and so dominant, and they scored 2 goals. And why can't they do that every game, right? They're an offensive juggernaut. They'll beat up on inferior opponents. They'll put up big points. And Cal Connor suffered a little bit of bad shooting luck last year. There was the first 15 games, he only had like an empty net goal or something, but he was generating all the chances, just wasn't getting lucky. And maybe this year he does. And then that results in him getting 100 points. I don't think it'll happen. I think he gets close, though. I think he gets over 85.
Ooh, interesting. I've got him down as the first 50 goal scorer and first 100 points guy. That was my bold prediction for this season.
I like it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, if it means we succeed and go to the playoffs, absolutely. Everyone's in on that. And I mean, Velarde had 7 shots on goal last night. If, even if it goes down to an average of 3.5 shots on net a night, that guy's going to be racking up points left, right, and center. Well, that's everything I've got. Actually, I've got some fun questions for you. I didn't ask these beforehand, but would you rather go to out to the White Shell, or would you rather go up to Riding Mountain?
Out to the White Shell. I camp there a lot with my family. And I absolutely love it there. So that's an easy one for me.
Nice. Yeah, everyone says the White Shell. How can you not? Like, I'm a good
How could you not?
Right. Like, I'm a good old Alberta boy. I love my mountains. But when I first moved to Manitoba, I got out to the White Shell. I was like, yeah, I'm not going back out west.
Yeah, no, it's great out there. I absolutely love it.
Nice. What is your favorite restaurant here in the city?
Oh my goodness, there's so many to choose from. This I don't know. I'm a big breakfast guy. So, Stella's is like classic. I mean, that's just a nice place. OEB just opened up downtown. If you ever go there, try their gnocchi. I'm a big fan. But I don't know. I'm a big breakfast guy. So, and there's no shortage of breakfast places. Modern Electric Lunch is another one that's downtown, is really good. Yeah, I love breakfast. That's my thing. Yeah.
Who doesn't love a good breakfast? And Stella's, that Mexican breakfast, that you can't go wrong with that anytime.
That's money.
Day.
That's money.
Yeah. Throw all that chorizo sausage on top of it. Mint.
Yes.
And what is your favorite concert you've been to here in the city?
Oh, I went to Morgan Wallen. This is fresh. This was September 28th. It was only a few weeks ago. So I gotta go with that. I mean, I don't go to many concerts. I went to Bruno Mars when I was young. But Morgan Wallen was one of my first concerts since then. And that crowd was just incredible. He's a great performer, obviously the biggest country artist in the world. So yeah, he's amazing, and I had a great time. So I'll go with Morgan Wallen. It's an easy answer.
Yeah, that's a money one. I'm kind of kicking myself for not getting tickets to that show. I had the opportunity to have free tickets, and I said no. I'm like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Rookie maneuvers. Either way, Connor, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to talking about the Jets with you sometime in the future as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Absolutely. Have yourself a good one, and go Jets go.